Welcome back to the Velocity Invitational. I'm down here on the pre-grid. We've got some stunning cars from Group 2, but right here I'm with this stunning 49 Jaguar with Chris. Chris, tell me a little bit about this car. You're starting on the lead too. You're running the field.
This car ran in 1955 and 56 for Akira Koss. Did about 25 races. Raced at Le Mans 58, raced through the 60s. I got it 5 or 6 years ago, and just a pleasure to drive.
And how does it feel out there in the front? You've got, you know, the wind blowing in your helmet, essentially. Is it nice to be back on the track in such a historic car?
It's always fun to come to Laguna Seca. It's always fun to be on a race car on the racetrack. So to start up front is great. You know, I have to watch the mirror, but it's nice to have the open road in front.
Exactly. Yeah, well, best of luck out there in this beautiful Scottish blue car. Let's head down a little bit. We've got Slim here in this car. Slim, I know you mentioned you love being on the track. 50 years of racing. What is it like to be out there again?
What are you driving?
Always fun, always enjoyable. A little nervous, of course.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Is that yours,
best
or
of
is
luck out there.
good for you?
Beautiful car we have here. And let's move on down.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about that.
John.
Just talk about,
I know you mentioned
what you like, what you don't.
Favorite cars to run.
A little bit about historics.
Right. Tell me a bit about being out there on the track.
Well, it's probably
Did you do the last two events?
Horsepower. And like I said before, it's got the little skinny tires, so it slides around a lot. Just a great old fun car to drive. It's got a lot of history.
Well, excellent. Best of luck out there and have some fun. All these drivers here are going to have an excellent time. As you heard from John, they love sliding around on the track, having a bit of fun out there. And check out this 55. Wes has got his helmet on, so I don't think we'll be able to talk to him. But how about this car right here, the number 15? Talk about some aluminum. Talk about a car. How long have you been racing?
Oh, 25 years.
25 years.
And this is my 4th time in the Manning.
And did you build this car?
I'm from London as well. I flew in.
Well, that's the best of here. We've got America and all the other countries pulled in for racing. How do you feel about racing against the other
Oh,
cars?
it's brilliant. This is a quick car too.
Well, good luck out there. We hope to see you up at the front at the end. All right, let's head up to the booth. These guys are going to get going right away. So back to you, Johnny. Let's get to racing.
Let's do it. Great stuff, Taylor. And we get ready for our Group 2 action coming up very soon. As you can see, they're getting on the pre-grid. That's where Taylor is. That's right in front of me. And they're doing their qualifying race. And I'm joined by Lars Mamstead, who's going to be in action today. But I've dragged him up here. Thank you for waiting, sir, first and foremost. But you're a big fan of these guys. And particularly, I know you said to me, you know a lot of the guys out there and a lot of the cars out there. So tell us a little bit about what we're about to see.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the normal group that I race with. I normally race a XK120 Jaguar. And a lot of the cars out on the grid today are from the Del Monte Trophy group. And They raced in period in Pebble Beach. And some of the cars that are actually on the grid did race exactly in Pebble Beach, and so it's quite amazing that these cars are still running and they're still, you know, doing great deeds out here on the track.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because that's where, if you like, the forerunner to Laguna Seca came from, which was they used to race around the forests and streets of Pebble Beach, and if you come into Laguna Seca, you'll see some of the trees painted white, because that's how you went racing back then. And unfortunately, if you hit one of those, it was a little unfortunate. But the likes of Phil Hill, and talking about the Jaguar, Sterling Moss, racing those very cars, came here back in that time and raced around Pebble Beach.
Yep, and Bill Pollock, too, was a racer in that time. And the Parkinson Jaguar, which is one of the specials that's out here, it had wrecked in Pebble Beach, and it was rebodied as this sports special. And you know, there's several cars out here that are, I would say, they're like hot rods, basically. The Streets Manning and the Baldwin Special and the Tatum Special. Those are all California specials, and they were built. Hot rodders in the day said, well, I want to go sports car racing. And so they didn't have the wherewithal to buy a European sports car, so they built these cars. Many of them had flathead engines, early American engines in them, and they're quick as sin, really. I mean, it's
quick as sin. I love it.
It's really amazing how fast they are.
Don Parkinson, am I right in saying Parkinson's brother-in-law was Phil Hill?
I believe that is true. I believe that is correct.
So there's a crossover. Phil Hill obviously became America's first world champion in Formula One, But we raced here a lot, and obviously I think he won the first ever Pebble Beach race here back in the 50s. So some real great history here. Really looking forward to this group. I mean, Lars, you said that you usually race your XK, your Jaguar here. I know James Alder very well. I'm sure you do.
Absolutely.
Why that car? Because it looks, it doesn't look like a race car.
So I'm a big hot rodder.
Okay.
And I saw a XK that was black with red interior, and it had some louvers on it. It was sort of hot rodded out. And I thought, man, that's the kind of car I'd like to race. And I like round cars.
Okay.
And the XK 120 is absolutely a round car, and just the opportunity came about that I could buy this car, and it's amazing. And you mentioned James Alder. He actually drives his car from Reno to the track, to every track that he races, and it's amazing. It really is amazing.
And that includes open top across the mountains, play or snow, rain or wind. He's out there, and everybody pips their horn, waves to him. He loves it.
Absolutely. And I also had the opportunity to race the Baldwin one year. My Jaguar had broken in the corkscrew. I blew an engine, and the Baldwin Special was offered up to me to race, and what a gem of a car that is.
If you didn't drive the Jaguar, which one of these would you fancy?
Well, I believe that there is a Maserati out here.
Well.
And the Maserati, honestly, is my favorite car in the whole paddock. It's just absolutely a gorgeous round. Here it comes, the number 67.
Yes.
And it's round. It's like a 550 Porsche Spider on steroids. It's a beautiful, beautiful machine, and the pilot there is. I've raced against him many times, and he's a great pilot, and all these guys are gentlemen drivers to the T. I mean, you could not find a better group of people to race with.
Let's explain that. What is a gentleman driver? Because it's an expression that, if you're familiar with motor racing, everybody knows what that means. But what it basically means is these are very proficient but amateur drivers. But when we get to this level of historic racing with this sort of originality, if you will, and absolute pricelessness in some cases, you've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is that we have all been racing together most of the time. There's no unknown quantity here.
Right.
And so, if we're dicing it up and it gets a little bit, like maybe somebody's going to get a little close to another person, we just back off and give the guy a little bit of room. Whereas if this was a professional race, we might be going, paint to paint. But these are rare cars, one-of-a-kind cars that cannot be reproduced. So that, you want to make sure that they're maintained and that they're kept safe as much as possible.
Well, as you can see, the pace car has pulled off, which allows us to take a good look at our Group 2 qualifying race for cars from 1948 to 1955, sports car racing cars, as well as 1947 to 1956 production cars. So some are production-based, some are pure racing cars, but the combination is absolutely glorious. The sound, as you can hear, fantastic. Lars Mamstead alongside me to enjoy this. And as you say, they know it all well, that Jaguar, all white of James Alder, brightly shining in the sunshine. He always tells me that he always has problems with certain parts of the car. There are certain car parts that go wrong, and it almost seems to be the same thing every time.
Yeah, well, I believe that he also daily drives that car.
Yes, he does.
So, wear and tear, just average wear and tear on tires, suspension, and that sort of thing. And he's always wrenching. As soon as he gets into the pit, he's wrenching away. He changes out his tires. He makes sure everything is proper before he goes out on the racetrack, and it's a great time. This Jaguar up front is unbelievably beautiful, and the three sports specials coming up behind are amazing.
Chris McAllister at the wheel, well known in historic circles. Seen him around the world, quite literally, racing. Chris McAllister from Indianapolis, driving that D-type Jaguar. And yes, there was a C-type, a D-type. The XK we know as an E-type, right?
No, the XK...
Sorry, excuse me. Go ahead.
No, the XK was the earlier car to the
That's
E-type.
Right.
Mine is a 51, and there was the XK 120, and then the XK 140, and there was various versions of that, and they made race versions that were all aluminum-bodied Jaguars. Mine's just a normal Jaguar, though.
There's nothing normal about Jaguar. We've got quite a few Jaguar XK120s out there. We've also got an OTS XK. Do you know the difference between that? That's how James is describing his, an OTS.
Open top something. Yeah, the other two guys out there, Tim Barnes and Bill. I don't have Bill's last name here. Anyway, Bill Rookledge. Bill Rookledge.
Yeah, Bill Rookledge.
Bill had lost an axle a couple races ago, and he's just gotten this car back together, and he's just absolutely pleased to be out racing. And we were hoping to all get together with all four of us, because we really do give each other a great battle in the mid-pack. We can't keep up with the guys at the very front. Their lightness and horsepower kind of outdo us, but we have a great battle usually in the mid-pack.
Lars, give me an insight, give our audience an insight into how much time, whether you or whoever's working on the car, puts in to each and every event, because I would have thought that there's a fair bit of work to keep these cars running the way that they are in their pristine condition like this.
Yeah, I mean, all of these cars that I've talked to the drivers, they've all been working on their engines, their drivetrain. Racing puts tremendous stress on the vehicles, and it's much, different than what you're doing on the street, because you're hammering the brakes and you're hammering the gas, and you're going into turns with huge G-force. And so, part of it is thinking ahead of what parts do I need to be worried about that might come loose or break loose later on, and replacing those. So in my Jaguar, we're replacing all the axles this next time around, just for safety reasons. We don't want to have an axle break on us, and they do get brittle and wear out over time. I know that the Tatum that's out right now, they were having problems with the rear main, and it was leaking oil, and so they were wrenching all night last night to get this car on the track today, and that's the case a lot of times. These guys will work all through the night to get their car and to be able to show it here at Laguna Seca.
We just got a glimpse of the number 15 1952 Manning Street Special, one of 3 Manning Specials built to Charles Chuck Manning's plan.
Yeah, he had plans that you could buy, and then you would build the car. And Marcus Bicknell here is racing, and he's come across the pond from England, and he is a true gentleman driver, and he races all kinds of different cars. But the cars are actually owned by Rob Manson, and these are his hot shoes, and so he flies in the hot shoe from England to race that. And Slim is racing the Baldwin Special, and it's another friend of his. Like I said, I had the opportunity to drive that car. What a fabulous car! The Tatum Special is also a car of his, and I got to meet Tatum, and he was a real deal guy. He was in Okinawa, and he was one of the survivors of Okinawa, and then I believe he was one of the guys that developed the Formula V.
Yeah, look out for that 1953 Tatum GMC Special, number 25C, currently in 6 places. We look at the 67 of Ned Spiker coming at you in that Maserati, that distinctive logo.
That's the one for me. That's the one for me.
I actually think in some ways Maserati have won the game a little bit, because they haven't produced as many cars as some of the other Italian manufacturers. I shan't name them. But I think that makes them almost a little bit more special when you start to see them in their 50s and 60s sort of era. Yeah,
Ned Speaker is one of my heroes for sure, and he's a friend of Laguna Seca for sure, and he has had some other events here that I've participated in, and I just always love seeing that car here. It just warms my heart to see it.
And this is live streamed on the internet. Give people a little bit of an intro to why Laguna is so special to the people of California and to Americans and like you said, the traveling Brits and many other Europeans that come here. Why is Laguna so special?
Well, obviously it came out of the Pebble Beach road races, and it was too dangerous to keep racing through there, so they made an agreement with the military. This used to be a big military base, and so they made an agreement to create this track. And it's really quite a unique track. I race several tracks around California, and the elevation changes at this track really make it unique. A lot of tracks that you race at are pretty level playing field and level ground. But climbing up to the corkscrew and coming down the corkscrew and the dive down into turn 2, and there's off-camber turns in this track, make it quite technically challenging. And it's, yeah, it's a magnificent track. They changed the configuration of it, I believe, in the 80s. They added the sweeper 3, 4, 5 kind of turn situation. I believe that people were going too fast and it was a little bit dangerous.
Well, this is James Alder in that Jaguar we were mentioning. And how about this? Approximately 142 race weekends over the last 37 seasons. That's how committed James is, and he drives to each and every one of them in this car from Reno.
Absolutely, and it's funny because I'll be driving my 1957 Alfa later, and he has raced against my 1957 Alfa for a vast majority of those years when the previous owner owned it.
So what do you, okay, so let's talk tactics here. What do you change when you get to a racetrack that you wouldn't necessarily use on the street, or do you just race it as is?
For James, it's mostly the tires. You have to have a special compounded tire in order to race here. We run on the Jaguar's Dunlop tires, and they have to be a special compound. In period, all these cars have to have a spec to the period in which they were raced in originally. They can't have new engines or fancier brakes or any of that kind of stuff. It just has to be the way that it was. And so, one of the things is it's harder and harder to find the parts for these cars.
Right, absolutely.
They're not making them anymore, and that is the reason my Jaguar isn't ready.
So what do you do when you lose, when you lose a suspension arm or something?
You have to find the parts hoarder. That the guy that has one in his basement still and is willing to let go of it for you.
But this was something, and you can talk to this, Jeffrey O'Neill, who we've already seen in action, and Ryan Turry, who put this event on, they said, no question, we want this to be authentic. The cars that you see are the real cars. There is nobody scrimping, doing a special part. Yes, okay, the helmets, the hands device, that's different, that's safety. But the cars themselves are original.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can attest to that, having looked at all of the undersides of many of these cars and the engines and talked to the drivers, and there is a desire to preserve these vehicles as they were. They're timepieces, and we don't want to, they're only original once, and you can't go back once you destroyed that originality.
Was there a period when historic racing was starting to gain favor again? Because it has. In the last 20 years, it's blown up. But were certain collectors a little more reticent than others to say, I'm not taking it out of the museum to go racing with it. No, I'll keep it here, thanks. But now, suddenly, they see them, and now they all want to be a part, right?
Yeah, I think, I watched the historics many years ago, and the thing is that if you hit somebody here, they don't. This is an invitational. You're not invited back if you hit people, right? And so I believe that once you've seen a few races where you realize that there's no contact, everybody's driving safely, and it's okay to bring out your precious, rare, one-of-a-kind car and show it off, because the cars are meant to be shown at speed. You can't really get the whole picture unless you see them really in action, swaying back and forth on the racetrack. As the Jaguar, when you're driving the Jaguar, you're working that wheel all the time. It's just a sawing machine to keep that thing on. It's very heavy. The brakes don't work. These cars, all these cars, I say, they don't stop and they don't turn. So you really have to, you have to be an expert pilot to drive these cars.
So what's your daily? Because that must feel very odd to get yourself into a modern car with a tiny steering wheel after driving that Jaguar.
Yes, well, I'm a big Porsche guy.
Oh, well then, exactly.
I also race a GT3 Cup car in SCCA racing. So, it's completely different. These cars, in many ways, are so much better because it's the visceral feeling, shifting the gears, smelling the fuel, smelling the clutch burning a little bit, and I love these open top cars because you feel the wind in your face and you really feel the speed as you're coming down the hill.
Just looking down the list, one car we haven't mentioned, a 1953 Siata 208. That's an interesting car, and it's a California car from San Francisco.
Yes,
Robert Davis driving.
Yes, I've raced against him many times. A great pilot. Those cars don't have a lot of power, so you really have to work it in order to keep up with the pack and keep in the groove of things.
That was the Elva Mark 1 in the 814 there, the 1955 Elva. There he is. Dennis Adair driving that.
There's that green Jaguar, Bill Rutledge, going up the hill. And
Bill's been a perennial sort of historic man, hasn't he? I've seen his name on many of the entry lists over the years.
I believe he drives maybe a Austin or something also as well. He has another green car similar to this in another group.
Well, I know James will be very pleased, James Alder that is, to be in the top 10. He never thinks of it as being competitive, but if he can get round and stay in the top 10, that's a happy day at the race.
Yes, well, he's in the front of all the other Jaguars, and that always makes him happy.
Especially if you've driven it here. Of course, a lot of people do put it on the back of a trailer because, hey, you don't know what's going to be out there.
Yeah, the sports specials are all right up there in the front of the pack, and those guys are always battling with each other, and it's a great thing. And there's a Porsche back there. It's quite interesting.
That's a Glockler?
No, I believe that might be a Devon Porsche, possibly.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful car. I love those. It's so great to see these cars in action. The sawing at the steering wheel, the C-type, and he went off a little bit, a little bubble there. It's a beautiful car. He maintains that meticulously.
Yeah, and I really do advise if you're on site, if you're here at Laguna Seca, please come into the paddock, come down to where these cars are parked. They all have little dockets there to explain the cars, the history of the cars. The drivers are always welcoming, and just like Lars, they'll tell you about their cars. But remember, they do have to drive them at some point, so don't hold them there forever unless you're going to buy them a drink. But they are willing to talk to you about them. It is their passion. I can hear it in your voice just talking about these cars. You love this.
Absolutely. So the Pebble Beach Road Racers have a trophy. It's the Phil Hill Cup. And each race that we do, we have a team of people that determine and judge who was the most gentleman driver, and you get your name carved on the Phil Hill trophy.
Well, that's pretty prestigious.
And we have a big to-do about that. And I love, the Ragtime Racers were just up, and they had their display is amazing. And Dick DeLuna, who was racing in that, he's my hero. Like when I grow up, I want to be Dick DeLuna for sure. Absolutely.
We just saw that 1955 Hagemann Chrysler special going through.
The Hagemann.
Yes, the Hagemann,
Yes, absolutely.
The 44.
That's a very special car.
And by the way, they'll be back in action later again. This is the qualifying race, so we'll see them over the weekend one more time.
And Tim Barnes, who's also racing a blue Jaguar out there, his family was related to Lance Reventlow for the Scarabs.
Oh,
and I believe it might have been even his uncle was Lance Reventlow.
What have we here?
That
is interesting. Different too. Let's have a look.
54.
54. That's the Aston-Martin
Aston
DP2
Martin. Yeah.
Mark 1.
It's a saloon car.
I didn't recognize it from the front.
It's a beautiful car. It must be very heavy and hard to turn. I see him going wide in turn 2 there.
Well, you don't want to spill your tea.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I love about coming to this event and events like this. I was walking through the pits today and I saw a car I'd never seen before, which doesn't happen very often, but there was another Aston Martin down there, 70s of some sort, and it just caught my eye. I had to stop and take a picture of it because it's just a beautiful machine. And, a lot of these cars, they didn't make but a few handfuls of them.
Yeah, I was talking to my producer who's been around motor racing for, most of his life, and he was saying that, the Zinger is absolutely something he would absolutely love, and he's never seen one up close, and there's one right in front of me as we speak. The Hennessy over here from Dallas, Texas. I mean, these are hypercars that do 1 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. Things like that. We're about to hear a little bit about the Zenvo from Denmark, a really interesting car parked right next to my commentary position. And that's the juxtaposition that I like what Jeff O'Neill has done here. He's not said this has to be all historics. He wants people who are interested in historics to look at the technology of what's coming next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, having the modern cars here brings in the younger crowd and introduces them to the older vintage cars. And I have a buddy that's a young man that's racing in the minis, and he's probably 18 years old, and he's just having a blast at it. And that's the introduction, that's the gateway to this vintage racing.
Well, I know a young couple, they are close to my family, if not they are family, who've driven up in a Fiat 500. She's called Tiffany, and they're here, and they are a couple of youngsters at college, and they've come all the way from San Diego in that little car just to come and see this event. And it just shows you that we can attract some youngsters to these motor racing events, and I hope they're enjoying it. But I'll find them later. I'm sure I'll have to buy them a drink now for outing them about their car, but they brought their little Fiat up.
We're on the final lap here, and the D-Type seems to be out ahead as it has been leading the entire time.
Yes.
Followed by the 3 sports specials, the California sports specials. And they always have a great race. And it looks like the Parkinson Jag is in second place.
So final lap of our Group 2 qualifying race. My thanks to Lars Marpstead. You'll be in action
at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
Yep.
Are you looking forward to seeing Mario?
Yeah,
in a modern F1 car?
Absolutely. I had the pleasure of seeing him maybe 10 or 15 years ago here, and was amazed at the speed that he's able to pilot those cars around this track. It's in my Cup car, the best I've ever done is a 1:33, and I do in the Jaguar I do a 2-minute, and so these guys in these F1 cars, they get 1:19, 1:18. I mean, it's just amazing the speed that they can go around these tracks.
So the Jaguar making his way to Chris McAllister at the wheel, making his way to the checkered flag. Yes, Mario Andretti is here, folks. Just remember the day you were here. He may be older than most of the cars here, but let me tell you what, he is still licensed and still does 2-seater drives and will pedal a modern Formula One car, an ambition of his that he told Zach Brown about, and Zach said, I can make that happen. And Zach likes to make dreams come true. Ask Daniel Ricciardo, who got his chance to drive a NASCAR. Ask Pato O'Ward, who got a chance to drive here last year, as well as the modern F1 car for McLaren at Abu Dhabi last year. So Zach making dreams come true, and he's going to do it for Mario. There's the checkered flag then. It's Jaguar who win in our Group 2 for sports and sports racing cars from 1948 to 1956, as well as the production cars. And well done to Chris McAllister, a well-known name in historic circles in that D-Type Jaguar, making it home ahead of the rest of the field.
Wow, what a clean race that they had. No yellow flags, no problems at all. What a great race.
Now time for a bit of lunch, I would say. Well, Lars, thank you so much for coming up. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
What's your number so we can look out for you?
I'm number 257, a red Alfa Romeo Giulietta Monoposto.
Oh, Monoposto Alfa Romeo. I can feel it in my bones already. Lars, good luck with your Alfa Romeo. We'll be watching out. Thank you for joining us, and come back and join us and tell us anything you've got for us if you want.
All right, excellent. Thank you.